Hi folks, welcome back to the Hoard. You know, some days are good video days and other days, God, there's just not a lot to talk about, folks. Anyway, let me show you what I'm up to. You guys remember the 2000 Kawasaki Lakota. This is the bike. There are two of them in the Hoard. One of them lives in Pennsylvania, and this one lives here. My son actually bought this in Pennsylvania. It had jump time and the piston hit the valve. I did a leak back test on it. You guys remember this whole Harbor Freight thing with both valves closed and the piston just about up. I made sure the valves were closed by loosening up, the adjusters. So the valves were closed, the piston was all the way up, and it turns out that indeed the piston did hit the valve, and it was the intake valve that got hit, and one could see right there, that it did get a little bit of a headache, a little concussion. There's quite a bit of crap in there. He must have been burning. I mean, the board looks good though. I mean, a little bit. I mean, it feels good. I mean, I didn't drop it all the way down to check the center, but it really feels pretty good. And I'm not seeing a lot of play, Oh, there is a little. Actually, there is quite a, probably in the center where you get the most play. There is a good little bit. And here's where the valve was hit. You can see right there that it was hit. And if you're able to look down under there just a little bit, you can see where it's kind of leaking by. Doesn't look like much more than a couple of hairs wide, but that's enough to leak out the compression. Anyway, I asked you guys advice, and you guys said, open the engine up and deal with the valve. Now I'm kind of wondering, should I spend about $150 on a used head, or should I spend somewhere around $20 on a valve and just slam it in there? I don't know. I had a Honda, and I bought the engine. It had jump time before I got it. It was a 200S motor, and it had jump time, and it was the exhaust valve, I think, that got hit. Was it the exhaust? It might have been the intake. Doesn't matter. Not important. And it had done some damage to the valve guide. The valve guide was no longer true to the valve sitting properly and down. I don't know. From what I could see, everything, looks as kosher as possible, but I haven't completely torn the whole thing apart. I mean, it was just barely hit. I mean, it didn't go by it and, whack it a whole bunch of times. I think it truly was sitting in his shed idling when it probably stalled and ran backwards, right? Sometimes when they stall, they jump backwards, and that was when it jumped time. Then when he went to pull it over and it hit, he probably did that by hand. A running engine would do a lot more damage than what you guys could see right there, and right here. Right there, right? You'd see a lot more damage. It just barely got the carbon. I obviously, or not obviously, let me tell you, I did take the adjuster out, and here's the adjuster, And the adjuster doesn't continuously move in and out. Looks like you have to undo this bolt, which allows this to come out a little bit more. Now I'm not sure how far this adjuster is out. Yeah, I'm not as sure how much more it comes out. I guess I do have the manual for this. What I should do is there's probably some maximum spec, and there's some probably some maximum spec. I think I saw it actually when I was looking at it. For you measure a bunch of links on the chain, and then there's a maximum spec for how long they should be. But just wrapping the chain around the upper, not the lower, the upper sprocket, it seemed tight. There was no, how does one say, bunching? You know, when you kind of get it to the top of the sprocket and you go to move it and you're able to, you know, lift it off the sprocket like that when you hold the sides on. There didn't appear to be any of that bunching going on, so yeah, it was it seemed tighter than that. That's actually the piston moving. I'm trying not to move the camera. I guess it's not horrible. It really does feel pretty good. I'm not feeling any scratches or anything. It does have a bit of it does have a little ridge. Yeah, mostly on this side I feel a little ridge. Not a little bit in the back too. Not really anything here. Well, a little bit. Yeah, there is a little bit of a ridge there. You know, with all these things, when you break into an engine, you always wonder how far do you want to go, right? I decided to take the advice and do something with the head, and obviously now I'm going to do that. And I wonder once again if I should go for the $140 fix, or if I should say just screw it and go for the you know, $25 new valve. If I do slam a new valve in there, I don't easily have a place that will cut the seats and cut the valves and put it all back together again. So I just take the new valve and lap it in. If I do take the new valve, I do have the compound in that, you know, suction cup thing you run between your hands, like you're starting a fire with the stick, you know, a drill fire as they call it. I do have one of those. I guess as I think back to high school shop, the way it used to work is you'd put some compound on the drill, on the valve and the seat, and you'd spin the drill in your fingers, and you'd see if you could cut yourself just a nice circle, a nice thin line. If you cut yourself a nice thin line, you had a sealing line, and that meant you were good. I get back to it, and I've mentioned this a few times. I've watched people rebuild engines, and I swear to God, they slam shit together. Excuse my French. I mean, they slam stuff together dirty, and you know, they'll lap the valve, and the valve won't look very good, but they slam it together anyway, and their stuff runs forever and ever and ever. Then I've watched people carefully do things and scientifically and measure it and torque it and do all kinds of great stuff, and they'll fire the engine up, and they won't get one lap around the track before the thing lets go, or you know, or they won't have the bike out beyond its first ride before something pops, and they're all dead. So I'm not saying it's luck. There's obviously people who are skilled, right? I mean, if Jasper rebuilt engines and every other Jasper engine let go, you know, after the guy spent all kinds of money to put it into his moving van or into his F-150 or whatever, they wouldn't be selling engines anymore. Though I've heard of Jasper engines not making it to the first oil change. Anyhow, yeah, this kind of stuff always kind of has you scratching your head a little bit. How far do you go? What do you do with this? Guys, obviously I'm open for suggestions. I want to hear what you guys think about, you know, what would you guys do? Would you just put a, you know, $20, $25 valve into it and, you know, jam it all back together again and, you know, cross your fingers and hope for the best? Or would you, I mean, some of you would probably go through the trouble of pulling the bore out, giving it a quick hone, and replacing the rings. I don't want to keep going. You know, I'll stop where I am, see where the engine's at, and then if I do have to do that, I will. It was convenient that I didn't have to pull that engine out of the frame for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I think that engine weighs more than I do, and secondly, there's a lot more removal and so forth to get it out. Guys, tell me what you think. New valve, replace the head. If I do put a used head on there, what guarantee do I have that, you know, the intake or exhaust valve wasn't hit when they own the bike, right? There's always how far do you go? Anyway, folks, I want to thank you all for watching and commenting and subscribing. Remember to keep your feet down, keep your head up, and please get out there and enjoy all your days. Bye now.